Scandinavian Bob here, hi. If you are in the process of quitting porn, you are on a NoFap journey and you happen to be in a flatline right now, what are you supposed to do after the flatline when you get your libido back? Do you have a plan for that? Or even if you are not in a flatline right now, but you are doing what you call a 90-day NoFap challenge, well, what should you do when you make it to day 90 then? What's your plan here? Have you even thought about that? You have to know this or you run the risk of failing with NoFap forever, and I'll tell you why this is so important in a moment. But this is something that NoFap YouTubers never talk about. And as a rebooting coach and as someone who has been involved in the NoFap no porn community for 12 years by now, I feel it's my duty to inform you guys about things like this. And so we are going to take a look at a few examples here in just a second, but before we do, here comes something really important. You have probably heard me say the words, your life, your rules in my videos before. And now even more so, those words are going to apply because it depends on what goals you have with your NoFap journey. You see, people do NoFap for all sorts of reasons, and on top of that, people even define NoFap differently. So in order to make this clear, here's how the founder of the NoFap forum and actually the very founder of the word NoFap itself, Alexander Rhodes, defines NoFap. Quote, to help people overcome porn addiction and other forms of compulsive sexual behavior, unquote. Yeah, so the focus is on quitting porn, not so much masturbation or semen retention. And if you now go, that's not what NoFap means, well, perhaps not for you, but you can't put it like that since we now are talking about a phrase that comes directly from the guy who came up with the word NoFap and created the forum. And just so you know, this is also what I myself have always meant when I use the word NoFap in my videos, unless I explicitly say otherwise. You know, sometimes I also talk about retention or masturbation in and of itself. Why? Well, because again, people have different goals and people interpret the word NoFap differently. And I talk about all of those goals from time to time. Okay, so with that said, now you also understand that you will have to have an open mind if you are going to watch this video, because some of the things I say later on may fly directly in the face of your goals or even your views. But remember, even though people have different goals with NoFap, everyone absolutely must know what they are going to do once they get out of the flatline or once they hit their 90-day goal. Okay, so if you look at the screen right here, let's say that you are one of the guys who are doing NoFap both for quitting porn and for semen retention. Well, since you guys also quit the porn, chances are you had some form of addiction-related brain changes to it. And if so, you may descend into a flatline, which, if you didn't know, only happens to people whose brain have been altered by online porn. A flatline does not happen just by abstinence itself if there's no history of porn use in that guy's life. So the flatline is a new phenomenon. The flatline didn't even exist before the internet was invented. Anyway, okay, so let's say you have embarked on your journey and in your second week after quitting, you descend into a deep flatline and now your libido is completely dead. Okay, so what are you going to do when you get out of the flatline? What's your plan? Are you going to use your libido for something? Let's say, for example, that you have decided that you want to have a period in your life where you just keep working on yourself and your goals. You do not have a wife and you don't even want to date. Well, that's all fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Again, your life, your rules. But if that's the case, then you better make damn sure to indeed have a lot of goals to work on and that you learn how to channel that energy, because if you think you can just hang around, work in a job you don't really like and play some video games when you get home and not use your libido on anything, you are sorely mistaken. Why? Well, just think about it. Your sexual energy is incredibly powerful, and once you get out of your flatline, you better make sure you either channel it or use it, because you can't suppress it. That's impossible. And if you want to stay in this box, which again is totally fine if that's what you want to do, if you don't want to date and if you don't want to ejaculate, then you have to learn the art of transmuting the energy. You will have to get good at meditation, exercise, deep breathing, focusing on your goals, and on and on and on. And so this is what I mean by you have to know in advance what you are going to do after the flatline ends. So you can start preparing in advance, so you can learn about transmutation and how to channel your energy. What's your plan? Have you even thought about this? Okay, so let's say your main goal is to reboot in order to overcome a porn addiction, because you see how porn is causing negative effects in your life. Maybe you even have PIED. Okay, so if you're in a flatline right now without libido, what are you going to do once your libido comes roaring back and once you have a strong sex drive again? Are you going to allow porn-free masturbation or not? Now here is where you guys have to be open-minded, because you have to understand that a porn addiction is not the same as addiction to masturbation. Yes, some guys can also be addicted to masturbation, and yes, they overlap somewhat. But for more than 90% of the guys, it is porn that is addictive, not fapping in and of itself. Porn can be used to override your natural satiation mechanism. Masturbation in and of itself cannot, because it comes from you and not from a supernormal stimuli. Do you understand that? This means that out of those who are addicted to porn, yes, many of those guys also feel like they want to cut out masturbation from their lives for good. And if that's what they want, that is totally fine, 100%. Okay, obviously you don't need to masturbate. However, there are also going to be those who want to see if they can reintroduce porn-free masturbation in their lives after their reboot. And guess what? Absolutely, many people can do that without going back to porn. And if that's what they want, that is also 100% fine. This is where I myself see red on platforms like Twitter, for example, when I see some reboot coaches say things like, if you keep masturbating, then you have not overcome your porn addiction. Because you cannot make blanket statements like that. That is the case for some people, yes, but far from everyone. Why? Because porn addiction is porn addiction. It is not masturbation. They are two separate things. Now here's the thing though. Yes, there are some guys, especially those who started off very young, that simply cannot separate those two, because masturbation and porn has become so intertwined in their brains. So if they try to masturbate without the porn, it reminds them of the porn so much that they will just start relapsing back to porn again. So as you can see, this is a pretty complex thing, which is why it makes me see red here. And I have to say to anyone listening to this, if you are only capable of black and white thinking, then you should not be a reboot coach, because we're all so different. And on top of that, we have different goals. You have to be able to be flexible in your approach. But my point with this video is, whatever your goal is with your journey, you have to decide in advance what you are going to do that day when the flatline ends. Because here's the thing. Let's say you have been staying away from porn for 90 days and you have also been staying away from masturbation to help give your brain a complete rest from all things sexual in order to try to heal your brain faster. Well, now you have gotten so used to not masturbating that once you reach 90 days, perhaps one evening you happen to do porn-free masturbation out of horniness. And since you've been away from masturbation for so long, it now feels like you just relapsed, even though you didn't use porn. And even though your big goal in the beginning was to only quit porn addiction. And because of that feeling, perhaps your former addict brain tricks you into going back to porn because, you know, it uses that old trick of, well, I just relapsed anyway, so I might as well use porn too. And so now maybe you fap to porn a few times as well, and before you know it, you're stuck in the grips of porn again. Oh, now that would be a huge mistake because you set out to overcome your porn addiction. Now, this was just an example, but these are things that can really happen. And in this scenario, you can clearly see how the lack of a plan on what you are going to do after your reboot can completely sabotage your effort. If you, on the other hand, would have planned in advance that, hey, once I have reboot, I'm going to try to incorporate porn-free masturbation into my life and see how that works for me. And you would have to remind yourself of that as well. But then you would not have reacted the way you did from that spontaneous masturbation session, and your addict brain tricking you into that mistake would perhaps not have happened. But remember now, you do not have to use porn-free masturbation after your reboot if you don't want to. This was just an example. Remember, your life, your rules. Okay, so let's say you want to start dating after you get your libido back. And so you want to use your libido on real life people. Again, that is totally fine. Your life, your rules. So that's good. But what are you going to do if it takes a really long time before you get a date? Perhaps you get a lot of rejection and you suffer massive blue balls as a result. Are you going to allow porn-free masturbation as a release then? If so, that's totally fine. If not, and you want to save yourself for the real date, also fine. But again, you need to decide in advance, because if you remember only one thing from this video, make sure it's the following words. The more unclear your plan is going forward, the higher the chance of you messing everything up. Okay? Really, really important. And what about moderation? And so now you say, wait a minute here, where are you going with this, Bob? Well, this may come as a shock to many of you, but I am actually not anti-porn, and I am certainly not anti-masturbation. I am pro-information, meaning I feel it's my job to inform people about the potential negative effects of porn, and then they should then make up their own minds on what they want to do and how they want to live. It's the same as with alcohol. Alcohol is a drug and we all know it's bad for us, but I still think people should be able to drink it if they choose to do so, just as long as they are aware of the potential negative effects they can run into. So let's say you're one of those guys who have been using so much porn that you are so desensitized to it and you can no longer get any pleasure out of it. Well, this one has to be the most controversial of them all, and many of you are going to be shocked at what I'm about to say here. But here's the thing, I stand behind all of my words, and when I say your life, your rules, I actually mean that. So if you want to try to use porn in moderation, then hey, as long as you are aware of the dangers, you go right ahead. Your life and your rules. Some of my friends still watch porn and I do not judge them. Now that doesn't mean I recommend it, because here's the thing. Most people who have been addicted cannot use in moderation again, because if they try, they will quickly just start escalating again, which is the case for me. So no, I can no longer watch porn myself, not even in moderation. But that doesn't mean I'm going to lie to you and say that's the case for everyone. Some people can actually learn how to keep it at moderation. But here's the deal, they are definitely in the minority. So again, I can't say I recommend it. But if you want to give it a try in order to find out in what category you belong, hey, go right ahead. I do not judge here. And if you don't believe me that there are some people who can actually do this, then fair enough, that's fine. But you could then, for example, listen to the book Dopamine Nation, written by the addiction expert Anna Lemke, who says the exact same thing, that some people can learn how to use again in moderation. You see, I hate ideologies, and I often have a big problem with dogmatic people, or people who say things like, that's the way it was for me, so therefore it has to be the exact same for you. No, not only do I think that's appalling, it's also wrong. So remember this, my friends. Whatever goal you have with NoFap, that's the right one for you. And do not let anyone else tell you otherwise. However, you have to plan your journey ahead of time and decide what you are going to do in advance in order to significantly increase your chance of success. Alright, so a long one today, and if you need my help with rebooting in any way, shape or form, maybe it's with relapsing, or maybe you are stuck in a never-ending flatline, or maybe you are struggling with PIED and you need some tips on in what direction you now should move forward, well, you can always reach out to me for a coaching session using the link below. And also, speaking about being pro information, I think it would be really good for everyone to see a 4-part video series I made a while back where I speak on exactly what happens inside your brain if you watch a lot of porn. So if you haven't already, please go ahead and watch that now, because educating yourself about this will be of immense value as you plan and keep working on your journey. Just click on the video you see on the screen right here, and I'll see you over there.